June 30, 1965. Dearest Suzie, I finally got a letter from you today. Naturally, I was worried about you making that long trip. I'm glad you made it okay. I'll bet you really had a time with Brian and Brett on the trip. We really have it rough up here this time. We've been starting out at 0500 every day this week and working until after dark. I am really pooped. I'll be glad to get back to Vinh Long. And it looks now like we will be going home about the 7th of July. Then maybe things will slack off a little. I hate to make this a short letter, but I am about asleep on my feet. One thing, though, before I close. You can stop worrying about that trailer moving bill. They took it out of my pay this month. It was $22.15, so that is out of the way now. I'm going to close for now. Nothing exciting happening anyway. The heat up here is driving me nuts. I love you and miss you. Kiss the boys for me and have a good vacation. All my love, Bill. I have previously mentioned the eulogy my dad gave for Popi at his celebration of life. He agreed to let me share it. I will be reading it today. For a guy who prides himself on never reading and not doing much writing, I think he did a pretty good job. I'm not going to give much context on the things he writes here. If you've been following along, you will get it. Or, if you're my dad listening to this, thanks for being so supportive of this project. His eulogy reads as follows. His shoes. My dad always said, never judge a person until you walk a mile in their shoes. His shoes took him all over the world, from the dusty dairy farms of South Georgia and Central Florida to the skies over North Carolina. From mock battlefields in Germany, where he captured Elvis in a war game exercise, to the airfields of Vietnam. From the west coast of Africa to a courtroom in New Guinea, he certainly walked an amazing journey. William Pryor Lowy was born on March 16, 1937, in Abbeville, Georgia, to William O'Dale and Effie Elizabeth Lowy. He was the oldest of 7 children. He married Susan Rose Lutzko in 1957 and was the father of 4 sons. He finally broke the Shirley bonds of earth for the last time on September 14, 2012. Dad was a very intelligent and ambitious person. My aunt and uncle told me he always had a great sense of adventure and he wanted to see the world. Well, he did. Dad quit high school to join the Army to help support the family and see the world. While in the Army, he earned his jump certification as part of the 82nd Airborne Division in 1955. He earned the rank of E7 at the youngest age in peacetime. He served with great honor, dedication, and distinction as a helicopter pilot as part of the 114th Aviation Company in Vietnam from October of 1964 to October of 1965, where he earned several accommodations of merit while in a combat zone. After Vietnam, he finished his enlistment as an instructor pilot. After the Army, he sprayed orange groves all over Florida for citrus helicopters and winter garden. From 1973 until 1984, he flew helicopters off of fishing boats for star-kissed tuna. This journey took him all over the world. He tried different things between fishing trips. He bought a boat and wanted to start a commercial fishing company in Florida, but that never worked out. He bought a tanning salon for Mom, which she ran for years and finally sold. He flew helicopters briefly in Houston, but always ended up back on the tuna boat. After the years fishing, he worked hard and earned his ocean vessel pilot's license, which meant that he could pilot any ocean-going vessel in the world. He finally gave up fishing and flying after he experienced a tail rotor failure that forced an emergency landing in the middle of the night on a moonless night. He told me that all he could think of as he was going down was that he was going to die this way after everything that he had been through in Vietnam. When he walked off the plane that brought him home from that trip, he never flew again, as a pilot or passenger. When he decided to give up fishing, he started a janitorial service, which he had for a number of years. He also worked as a dock manager for Ivy's department store. His last job was as a supervisor for the Florida Turnpike toll system. He and Mom enjoyed spending time at the Hard Rock in Tampa. He and my mom finally retired to McRae, Georgia, just as he always talked about wanting to do. He often spoke of wanting to tell Molly his story. Unfortunately, they were never able to get together when he wanted to talk or when Molly could get away from her hectic schedule of being mom to 2 young boys. I never really understood what he meant by his story. I knew that he was a decorated pilot in Vietnam. I knew that he was a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne. I knew that he sprayed orange groves and helped Bell Helicopters develop different equipment and techniques to help the citrus industry. I knew that he had his appendix removed in Liberia in an operating room that had to have animals shoot out before the surgery. I watched as he almost died from the infection that occurred after the operation and the poor care in Africa. I received the phone call from the State Department and saw the story on the world news that he had been arrested in Papua New Guinea for fishing in illegal waters. We kept up with his time in jail and the trial through the nightly news, the State Department, occasional phone calls, and the occasional letter with local news clippings that he would send us. I knew that he drank a lot. I knew it sucked not having him to be a dad. I knew that he wasn't there when I needed fatherly advice and guidance. I knew that it really pissed me off when he would be able to come to one of my baseball games but couldn't stay for the whole game because he had to get home because it was time for the evening for a drink. I knew that when I was younger, I would get really excited when he came home, but as I got older, he would come home and try to be dad only to leave again, and it just got to the point that I didn't care if he came home or not. When he did come home, it was worse than him not being there. It always seemed as though he chose a bottle of Jim Beam over his family. In my teenage years, I really began to dislike him. A lot. When I was in high school, there were many nights that I would have to go with Mom to clean the bank building because he was passed out. He always picked nights that I didn't have to work at my job in the grocery store and nights when I had a hot date. When I graduated from high school, I lived at home for about another year to help out with bills and his business. I finally moved out one morning after he and I had a fight that he didn't remember the next day. There were a lot of those, but this one was it. I don't even remember what it was about. After 40 years of drinking himself to sleep every night, we finally were able to get him on a path to sobriety because of a medication mix-up that almost killed him. I swear that guy had 9 lives. The time he spent in the hospital was very enlightening to say the least. Our family members would take turns sitting with him in the hospital as he recovered. He would drift in and out of sleep and would often wake briefly and have flashbacks to his time in Vietnam. Molly and I watched him try to wash blood and body parts out of his helicopter. He asked me to fill the buckets up with water. There were no buckets. He had me close his door one day because he didn't want the kids in his room. There were no kids at the door. The following years that he was sober proved that he was a different person, more like the person that Mom said he was before he went to Vietnam. A little distant, but different. He was a good and loving and supportive grandfather. We definitely had a better relationship later in his life. He once complimented me on the type of father that I was to my boys. He couldn't believe that I was the way that I was with them since I didn't have a good role model. I told him that he was a good role model to me of what not to be. I also told him that I tried to be the type of dad I wished I had when I was growing up. Again, his story. What could he tell us that we didn't already know? Well, as it turns out, there was plenty. He didn't graduate from high school, but did earn his GED in the Army. He definitely knew the value of a good education. He started out flying heavy lift helicopters, transferred to troop transport, and finished in gunships. He served with the 114th Aviation Company for 1 year in Vietnam. He earned 19 meritorious air service medals, a Bronze Star, a Cross of Gallantry, as well as several South Vietnamese medals in their defense. He told me that when he enlisted originally, he wanted to retire from the Army. When his reenlistment came up after Vietnam, he was told that he would have to serve one more tour in Vietnam, and he would be promoted. He told me that he chose not to re-up because he knew that if he went back to Vietnam, he would not make it home alive. As I got older, he began to talk a little more about his time in Vietnam. I don't know if it was because he thought he was protecting us from the horrors of war that he experienced or if time had made it easier to talk about. He was born in 1937 and was 8 years old when World War II ended. He watched as the brave men and women of the greatest generation came home from war to ticker tape parades and treated as heroes. That instilled a great sense of pride and patriotism in him that helped shape his desire to serve the country as a warrior. He told me how disillusioned he was when he came home from Vietnam. He said that when he walked through the airport in San Francisco, he was spit on and called a baby killer by a bunch of snowflakes, my words, not his, I cleaned it up, that probably still lived with their parents, let alone witness their friends dying in front of them. In 1991, Mom, Molly, Brett, and I attended Dad's first air group reunion with him at Fort Rucker since they all served together so many years before. It was a humbling experience to be there with him and meet some of the men that he served with in Vietnam. There were a lot of handshakes, hugs, and tears for their brothers that didn't come home with them. I think it was the first time that I ever saw Dad show any emotion. There was one guy that approached him that Dad didn't seem real interested in talking to, which was kind of odd considering all the people that he introduced us to. He was actually kind of rude to the guy. When the guy walked away, Dad explained that many years ago they had a disagreement over a mission that they had just returned from. The gunships were doing rocket and machine gun passes over a VC village. When it was Dad's time to make a pass, a woman reached down and held a baby up in front of her. Dad pulled out of formation. He said he just couldn't do it. When they returned to the base, the guy that Dad was rude to turned out to be a lieutenant that was leading the mission. The lieutenant got in Dad's face and started screaming at him and threatened to court-martial him for being a coward. The guy kept on yelling until Dad had enough. Dad said he reached into his holster, pulled out his .45, put it to the lieutenant's chin, and said, "I think we are done here," and walked away. No charges were ever filed. When Dad passed away, we started going through all of his papers and awards from Vietnam. For a guy that threw everything away, he saved some pretty amazing things. We all knew that he had taken a lot of pictures in Vietnam. He was quite the photographer. We found a handwritten journal that he kept for the first month that he was in Vietnam. In November of 2021, Mom told us that she found every letter that Dad sent her while he was in Vietnam. Later that month, when we met in Georgia to do the Meemaw swap with Nancy, Alex started reading through some of them. It was like going back in time to hear his words, spoken by Alex, to hear him talking about his terrifying experiences in a war while still trying to be a 27-year-old father and a husband half a world away. We didn't get through all the letters that night, but it was still an enlightening evening. In early December, Alex messaged Molly and wanted us to call him when we were together because he had found another letter that he wanted to read to us. That night, Molly called him and put him on speaker so we could both hear him. Dad started out the letter apologizing to Mom for not writing for the last 2 days. He went on to explain that he had been drunk for the past 2 days because of a mission that he was a part of. The gunships were flying air cover for a squad that went out to find a group of soldiers that were ambushed. Dad thought the area had cleared out of all of Vietnam. He told the captain on the ground that the area was clear and was safe to get out of the armored personnel carrier. When he did, a sniper's bullet hit the captain in the head. The captain turned out to be a good friend of his, as well as the captain that they were trying to save. His words struck my soul. How in the world are you ever the same? As the letter went on, he struggled with the guilt and responsibility for his friend's death that he witnessed. He ended his letter, as he did all of them, telling Mom how much he missed and loved her, and the boys, and how much he wished he was with them. The letter truly had a very unexpected and profound impact on me. At that moment, I truly understood what he meant about not judging anyone until you walk a mile in their shoes. I can't possibly fathom how a person deals with an experience like that one, let alone all of the others. I truly wish he could have shared those experiences with me. I could never fully understand the effect that Vietnam had on him, but maybe I might have been able to understand how he became the person that I knew. He certainly didn't deserve the disdain and disrespect of a selfish teenager that didn't understand why his dad wasn't there for him growing up. I wish I would have known. Maybe I could have been there for him to help him deal with the nightmares that haunted his sleep. I have so many questions I wish I could ask him. Why didn't you tell anyone about your experiences in Vietnam? Were you trying to protect us, or was it too painful to talk about? Did you choose to fish for so long because it was a good way to help you deal with the nightmares? Why did we find a helicopter pilot's license from Costa Rica when you were never in Costa Rica? Why did we find copies of CIA applications in your paperwork? Why did you fly missions into Laos? Why were you flying a helicopter in the middle of a moonless night off the coast of Africa? Why didn't you help me take a walk in your shoes? The photo I chose for today appears to be a medevac helicopter for the 114th, which is our favorite ideal of Popi as a helicopter pilot. One that saved people. I'm Alex Lowy, and I hope you have enjoyed listening to this episode of Dearest Suzie and receiving messages from the past that my Popi wrote exactly 60 years ago. I sincerely appreciate your time and interest. Please consider following the podcast on your preferred platform, and if you're enjoying it, I kindly ask that you take the time to rate the show and leave a review. Also, Please follow the project on YouTube, X, and Instagram. All likes, comments, shares, and reviews will help grow the reach of this story. The links for these things should be in the description of this episode. Please feel free to email me at dearestsuziepodcast@gmail.com if you have anything you'd like to say. I'd love to chat or to hear about your stories as well. Thank you for listening, and God bless.